Hey everyone, Michelle here at Cedar Studios. Welcome back. I bet you remember that sound. Yes, it's the steaming your batting to make it super fluffy. And you're going to want to do that for this next project. So I have two projects for you that have bubbles in common. They are my bubble bucket, which is my version of a fabric bowl. And this bowl is extra squishy and puffy and so fun to use and incredibly easy to make, and you will be stunned how it's made. I watched so many videos on how to make fabric bowls, and I thought, well, there's got to be an easier way to do this and to get a really puffy version, because I didn't want just a thin fabric bowl made out of just the fabric and a hard stiffener. So this one is going to be really fun and super cute. The first thing we need to do is cut our fabric, and I'm truing up my edge here. I wanted to give you a little tip on using the ruler. A lot of people are using these little suction cup handles, and I am too. And you can see that if you're holding just the top, like putting pressure on the top of that handle, it can push over to the left, or if you're left-handed, to the right, but away from the edge that you want to be cutting. And that can cause an issue. So I have found when I put my hand down around the bottom and sort of the heel of my hand on the fabric that the ruler cannot slide over. Of course, I have to cut all the way through my fabric, but I can get a nice straight edge without it sliding to the side that I'm, cutting against, which always makes me irritated when I'm trying to cut a straight line and it doesn't come out straight. So I'm going to cut these at I believe it's 15 3/4 by 20 3/4, but I will put that in the description so you guys can have the measurement of the bowl I make. But you can make these any size you want. But I wanted to show you with these little selvage pieces, I save these because they've got a little frayed edge on them. And I'm doing scrapbooking as well, like making junk journals. And I take those little pieces and I coffee or tea dye them. And look how pretty they turn out. You've got that little ruffled edge without a lot of strings hanging off from, typical fraying. This is like frayed from the manufacturer. And I want to do a video for you with one of those soon, a sewn junk journal that would be for a sewer. I thought that was a kind of neat idea, and I'm excited to share that with you. But I wanted to show you what I saved those little frayed edges for. Anyway, I'm getting this piece of fabric cut out for a fabric bowl, and I'm going to continue on using the pink daisy one, but I wanted to show you how I cut this out. So I'm showing you the steps that I take to make my, oops, it's a brand new bottle. I haven't opened this one yet. The steps I take to make my puffy bowl, or my bubble bucket, or it has so many names, I'm still deciding, or vanity bowl. It's so cute to sit on your bathroom counter with your hairspray, hairbrush, things like that in it. It's really cute. But this is how I make these. I'm gonna give just a very light spray because I notice if I don't do that, the fabric can tend to shift when I fold this in half, shift around inside while I'm trying to sew it, and sometimes I can get some little pleats or puckering. And this is very light spray, just to keep it in place a little bit. And I try to do it inside this little tray so I don't get it on the cutting board. And some people said they've had issues with sewing through it. I haven't had that problem, but I do it very, very light. Maybe that's part of it. And you don't, oh, and the reason I'm doing this is because you don't quilt this puffer bowl. I leave it nice and puffy. And so now it's stuck on there pretty good. I might want to do this edge a little bit, just because it's along the seam that I usually have the issues. And now that's stuck in there. All right, so the next step is I've put my logo down toward
the middle top of the bowl because it's going to fold in half right here, like this. And so that's where I'm going to have it kind of end up. It's a little bit lower than that. Fold it in half. I'm going to stitch straight down the side first, and then I'll show you the next step.
First, I'm going to go ahead and use my clips down the side, the long edge of the bowl. And I want to do that. We're going to stitch straight down that side from end to end. Don't go across the narrow top part or the bottom part. But you can see I'm using one of my original bowls that I made, my bubble bucket. And you can see there's a seam down the back inside in the lining that I didn't like where it ended up. And then I didn't want a seam to go across the front bottom edge. So I've adjusted both those things, which really doesn't matter to you because I will show you the right way to do it. But you can see how cute and useful this little bowl can be. So let's take it to the machine. I used my walking foot to go through all this thickness and just did the 1/2 inch seam down the side. And you can see why you need the adhesive, because the little edge that you're sewing down that long seam wants to pull away because it's not quilted.
So I'm going to make sure I pull this totally flat and open and give myself a little clip here. Just a little one at on the fabric so I can see, just to mark my center seam. And then I'm going to bring this seam to the middle to match that little clip. Now this is all about managing the fabric on the inside, because you can see how easily it can bubble up in the corners. You can't see. So you can see here how easily it can bubble up in the corners if you don't keep it straight. So you're going to really have to work with keeping it flat, and that's why I use lots of the pins across here. And then I will cut the corners. And I try to open this seam, but it doesn't really matter toward the center here. I'm not gonna press it because I don't want to have a, flatten my batting at all. So let me match that little center there. And actually, I think I will just go to one side just so I know that it's the same on both ends. Or the opposite on both ends, actually. I'll pin one this way and one the other direction, so that when I put the ends together inside the bowl, there won't be so much bulk in one place. One will be going one direction, one will be going the other direction. And get this to match up here. There we go. And I just sort of slide my finger between the layers, get it as flat as possible. I mean, I'm going to have to remove some of these clips when I mark it. I'm going to go ahead and put one over here just to hold that inside flat. And that's why I use the temporary adhesive spray as well. And it just helps hold it in place a little bit. Now I'm not stitching here at all. I'm just holding the fabric flat inside the corner so that when I cut it away, it's going to be laying flat inside of there. I forgot to do that on this side. So I'm going to be sewing this seam. I'm using a 1/2 inch seam, but I'm going to stop at 2 1/4 from the edge here. Keep doing that. Okay. I'm going to stop at 2 1/4 from this edge because the seam is here. I'm going to go 2 1/4, mark a pin here, do the same on the other side, and that's where I'm going to sew in between. And the reason I'm not sewing all the way across is because I had this issue with my makeup bags. So when I did that and then I cut away the fabric, I would have that seam holding that corner piece together, and I had to go and unpick all of those to be able to reuse those corner pieces for something else. These are nice big square or rectangle pieces that I can use in another project. So I will mark it with a pin at 2 1/4, so in between those lines, right? And then I will come back and cut this away. There's no seam down this side, so you don't have to worry about adding in a seam allowance. So I'm adding in a 1/2 inch seam allowance and then coming over and cutting away up to 2 3/4 this way when I do it, and then 2 inches this way, and that adds up to approximately 5 inches, which is about the corner that I need for this diameter, which is going to be square, box. So let me mark that at 2 1/4 right there. Because it's kind of hard to write. I know you can, but to write on this fabric. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark it with a pin right now. Then when I come back, it might be easier to use a like a erasable pen or something. And this one will be at 2 1/4. Same on here. And the end that I'm going to leave open, I have to feel for it because I didn't go through the whole. Usually I have let me look in here. So the tag is right here on the other side. I am going to leave open the opposite end of where the tag is going to end up. So here's the tag here. I want to leave the opening here on this end. So I'm going to stitch all the way across here between the pins. So let me double check, make sure I've got that marked right. 2 1/4, 2 1/4. I don't know, when I started making makeup bags, I kept turning the little cutout. And when I was done with the bag, of course, it would be lopsided. The zipper would be off to one side or the other. So then I started paying attention more carefully, and it made more sense. So I'm being very careful when I do these now to make sure I'm cutting them the right direction. All right, now to the machine. Well, wouldn't you know, I forgot to press record on my phone. I don't have a lot of equipment yet for recording, hopefully one day, but I moved my phone back and forth, and so I moved it from the cutting table back to the sewing machine, and I forgot to push record. So on the bottom end, I made sure to sew all the way across between the 2 pins. And on the top end, the part that's going to end up inside the bowl, I made sure to leave a space, and I went ahead and stitched in each spot here. Now I'm going to cut away the corners, and then we will fold the corners in like we do on the makeup bags, but we don't have to finish any of the seams inside with bias binding, and you'll see why. It's a really fun little trick when I get to that point in the bag. Now if you remember, I had said I was doing the 2 1/4 here at the front, and then I'm going up to 2 3/4 here. So this is the angle that I'm cutting out. 2 1/4 up to 2 3/4. And that's going to give me the 5 inch finish across. So the easiest way to do this is to line up 2 3/4 along the bottom edge of the bag and mark across I'm going to turn it this way and line up this at 2 1/4. Line up this at 2 1/4 along the edge of this side of the bag. And that will give me my angle, the square part that I'm going to be cutting, well, rectangle part that I'll be cutting out. And so what you can usually do is just line it up all the way across. Let me make sure this one is on the right spot. And I can just go straight across to this side, do that one while I'm here. To about 2 1/4 inch. Go from the bottom, I'll come in at 2 1/4. I always like to double check. Double and triple, quadruple. There. And I kind of eyeball it, make sure these look even here in the middle because I want those to be the same. And the other end. So I want to do is to make a jig, but I haven't done that yet. And a jig would be like something that you can use over and over. It creates the same shape over and over. My husband has a laser cutter. I think I've told you that. And he would be able to cut one out of acrylic, I think. And I think that would be awesome. If that happens, I'll see if we can offer those so you can get this exact measurement. It would be one that's in this shape without the corners. And you just lay it on top of your fabric. And then you can mark your corners. It would be awesome. You can do it out of cardboard too. I just thought it'd be nice to have a ruler like this that's clear, that you could see through. Place it on your fabric just right. And then cut out or draw in the corners that you need for cutting. So you guys, I'm sure you caught this already. I forgot to add the seam allowance, which means I need to come, this is where I need to cut away. But if I do that, then I'm going to be sewing even further into the bag. And that's going to take away from my 5-inch bottom. It's going to become narrower in this section. So I need to just cut a 1/2 inch in between these lines. So it was 1 3/4 going this way. And then I'm bringing this a 1/2 inch in and 2 1/4 this way. So I can remark that, but I think I can eyeball it enough, come in a 1/2 inch when I cut, that it won't be an issue. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that away. Because this is going to be the corner that we pinch in to become this is where you're going to stitch. That one I'm going to make a little bit closer in. And give myself a 1/2 inch seam. Sorry if I confused you. Confused myself. So this is a 1/2 inch inward. I need to leave that. But again, this would be nice if I had a jig already set up. I wouldn't have to think about it. Because I go and I make things, and then when I come back to them, I have to go find my notes and remember what I did. Because, you know, you go on to make so many more of something else, and you come back to it, and you can't quite remember where you were. So now I can take all these clips off. And the pins out. And we are going to bring those corners together to create our boxy bottom. And this is where it gets kind of puffy. Do your best to match those, like fold it right in the corners there. Get some clips here. And you have to decide, I think because the seam is pushing it down that way, I'm just going to go ahead and move or push the seam to one side, go in the same direction. Clip that in place. Make sure, like inside, you can feel that the fabric is laying flat. Again, you don't want to have to reach inside or open it up again to get the puckers out. And I want it to fold downward that way. And I can feel it's puckering in that corner there. There we go. And the other end. And we're almost done with our bowl. And because we steamed up that batting, like I showed you in the computer sleeve video, it's got a little bit of firmness to it. So I haven't been able to really crush this as I've been using it. I just added that spring back, but it's also very puffy. And I think the double layer of interfacing or batting helps a lot too. And one more. And lastly is this corner. And you don't have to pin this if you're pretty confident going to the machine and just holding it together and putting it in the machine. But I want to make sure I have these corners nice and flat inside of there because I have had to take it apart when it puckered. It's because the interfacing is so puffy and then it's not quilted to the fabric, and so it wants to shift. There we go. Now I do a 1/2 inch seam on all these corners. Then we'll close up the bottom hole and we'll be done. It doesn't look like it, does it? But this is what I love about this bowl.
While I'm sewing all these corners together, I want you to see that the bowl that I made for myself, the little bubble bucket, it can sit right on my lap and it doesn't fall off because it's flexible. I use it to hold the clips, and I can fold down the bowl halfway down so it's even easier to reach in and out. Or, with anything else that you want to put in it. You can hold pens in it and makeup brushes and your hairbrush or all kinds of bobby pins. It's just a really fun little bowl that ends up measuring about 5 inches by 5 inches by 5 inches. It's a little taller than that, but you can make these any size you want as long as you can figure out how to make the bottom more square. And I guess it doesn't have to be square on the bottom. If you want it to be more of an oblong shaped bowl, you can do that too. So I figured out, by trial and error, the exact measurements so that I could get a square bottomed bowl that looks roundish on the top because it's not sewn down the side seams on all 4 corners. And so I'm going to go through and close up or just stitch across all 4 corners. I'm going to show you how to close up the bottom of it, and then comes the fun part. Okay, I bet I've got you curious. This is your bowl. Almost. So this is where you reach inside the bag to turn it inside out. You want to get those corners pushed through because we're going to need to have those match with the opposite corners, and you'll see how in just a second. And once you've pulled the whole bowl inside out, we're going to close up the center seam.
So it kind of looks like a makeup bag, doesn't it? This is where the zipper would usually go, but this is going to become, this is going to become a bowl. So we're going to close up the top here, pinch in the seam the best you can here. It's a little thick with that batting, You can cut away the batting inside. I don't find it's necessary. And we're going to stitch along the edge to close the seam. And I'm going to use my walking foot this time, not my edge stitching foot, because there are 4 layers of batting and 4 layers of fabric in this little edge. So I'm going to top stitch using my walking foot. It's going to make it easier to go over the bulk. Snip all these extra threads off because we are done with our bowl. There we go. And there's our bowl. Just kidding. This is what you do. You push it into the center. And you line up these side seams on the bottom of the bowl. Get those corners matching best you can. Corner to corner. And there she is. Isn't that adorable? Oh my gosh, I love these so much. And they're so fluffy. And they're so fun to use. Just puff them up a little bit. You can fill them up with your threads. You've got lots of threads sitting in your room, in your sewing room. What I love is that they don't tip over easy. The stuff doesn't fall out easy. You can see that I just grab this and carry it with me. It sort of just gets cradled inside as you're moving it around. You can also fold down the top like I think I showed you. Make it easier to grab stuff out of. Gives it a sort of cute slouchy look. But these are so fun. These are so fun, and I've made a bunch of them. And I'm going to see how they do at my market this weekend. We are headed out to a winery for a festival there. And I think it's going to be so much fun. So there is our square bottom, kind of round top, puffy, bubble bucket, vanity bucket, puffer bowl, adorable. I just think it's adorable. And I'm glad I got to share it with you.
I have a new Cricut. I think I showed that to you a little bit ago in one of my earlier videos. But I'm using it to cut out bubble letters, and these letters are going to go on my appliqué sweatshirts that I'm offering. They are oversized, really soft sweatshirts, and each of them is going to say either smile, cozy, or faith. And I have a coffee color, which is a light latte color, a pink, and a black sweatshirt, and they're so soft.
And to plug in my Cricut first. I'm just going to do copy paper for now. And come on over here. Let's see what's happening. Play. Or start. And it's thinking. There we go.
Back in college, I made, my husband and I, these sweatshirts because they were popular back in the early 90s. And I cut out all the letters by hand, and I had to use a little stencil that I drew onto the fabric, and then I appliqued it onto the sweatshirts.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. I think it worked. Let me lift the edge of the paper here. Haha! I'm so excited. It even cut, I figured out how to turn on just the inner cut of the A. And I'm going to be doing that for the O as well. So it worked, it worked, it worked. I'm so excited. And there's my letter A. Yay! That's exciting. I am no expert at using the Cricut. Like I said, I've just got this a couple months ago to try to do things like this. And I've made bookmarks and stickers and things, but this is the first time I'm doing a fabric cut. So it's exciting. Let me get some fabrics ready.
This is a roll of Heat and Bond, and you can get this on Amazon. I'll have it linked in the description below so you can find it easily. And it is just basically a sheet of glue that will iron your fabric to your whatever you're ironing it to, another piece of fabric. And so there's a paper side and there's glue on the other side. And you put your, what you're going to do with the Cricut is iron your fabric to the glue side, but leave the paper on. Now, technically, you are not supposed to do that because it can dull your cutting blade for your fabric. And I watched a lot of videos, and so many people said they get a better cut when they leave the paper on the back, that it is less frayed when they go to cut it.
So here are the color sweatshirts I've ordered. And that one's really pretty. This one is a sort of a coffee color. I'll grab some scissors. So these are oversized sweatshirts. And there's a lot available on Amazon. I just grabbed some that had really high reviews. And I've grabbed a couple of colors. These are going to have to be ironed. But look at that color, it's so pretty. I love it. And this one is going to say cozy, because it just is a warm, cozy color for winter. It's getting cold now. And again, it's got some really nice ribbing, which I've surprised. It needs to fluff up after it's been in that vacuum sealed in this packaging. But I bought a large and an extra large, and they are oversized. But it seems to be the style now to wear with leggings or just around the house, being enveloped by an oversized sweatshirt. So I think that's cute. I also ordered the black I showed you earlier. I had pinned my letters on there, but these were too small, so I went ahead and printed them slightly bigger. And this one's going to say faith. And I have two more coming today that are pink, a really pretty light pink. I think they're close to this pink in here. And those I'm going to have, it says smile. So I thought those would be so pretty together. And these are each going to be a different color from the fabrics that I have. You know, some of a mix of fabrics that will look really cute all together. I have to decide which letter is going to be what color. I tried to separate out the letters, so I'm just using 4 colors to mix in here. But that's where I wanted to start anyway. So the pink one's going to say smile, this one's going to say faith, and this one's going to say cozy. And hopefully those will be available soon. I'm going to steam all my sweatshirts and get them ready to go. I didn't think this was going to be so hard. I'm trying to decide what kind of lettering to put with these. Those go together well, these 4 fabrics. But they don't, I mean, they kind of go with this brown, but I don't think it's perfect. This sort of warmer coloring kind of goes with the tan here. Let me look through my other things and see what I have. I think I have my first color combination. This is going to be C-O-Z-Y, cozy. And these were some of the colors I used on my large tote bags, the Katie Shopper, and some of the book sleeves and little wristlets and things. So I think that'll look really pretty on this tan sweatshirt. What I would also love to do, if these actually sell, is to make one with the coffee fabric I have on this fabric. It'd be so cute. Let me show you. Look at that. It does match, so I could use a different color outline like white or a brown to make it pop. But that plus this fabric I haven't used yet. I did buy it for my fall collection. I think those mixed in with some other things that I have, that'd be really cute together. So we'll see. If these sell, I would like to try other colors for the sayings that I'm going to use. So at least I have this one to start. I still have this pile of fabrics here that I'm trying to figure out the combination for the other color of sweatshirts. Okay, so I've got my Cricut set up with the fabric blade for bonded fabric. I've got my fabrics here. I've separated my letters out. These are going to be all the C's, the O's, the Z's, and the Y's. We'll start with the C's. I'll probably have to cut a piece of this away. And because it can only be on my mat 12 inches by 12 inches. You can see this is not even that wide. So I'm going to iron it on here. Just need to cut a little piece. I'm going to cut that off. And then I'll iron it. Let's see, that's 12 inches. So just go ahead and cut it apart. Okay, so the instructions say to have the fabric on top. So I'm going to do that. My fabric is pre-washed. This is a piece from my stash that I was going to use for a quilt and never did. And you have your heat on medium. You do not use steam. And you hold it in place. It says for 2 seconds. And you just move around your fabric. Once you're done, then you peel off, well, I'm not going to peel off the back because I'm going to cut out the letters first. And then I'll peel off the back and iron it to my sweatshirt. Make sure that it is ironed on in all spots. All right, I'm going to let that cool, but before I cut it out, I'm going to make sure it's really ironed on well. So I had to turn my heat up a little and iron this from the back. It was not melting to the fabric when I ironed it from the front, but now you can see the shiny glue has transferred to the back of my fabric. And you can also see kind of the crease where the iron has been, which means it's finally melting to the fabric. I just turned it up a little bit. It's at a wool setting, which is kind of medium, a little higher than medium. I don't want to burn it. You know, that you'll know if you're burning it, it starts to turn yellow. You don't want to do that. And you can kind of see if there's any sort of whitish places that it didn't quite stick to the fabric. So I'm going to go back over that again. All right. So there is my fabric to cut. Up close you can see it's a little bit shiny. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah. And that is the adhesive is now on the back of my fabric. So I'm going to take it over to my mat and to the Cricut. Okay, I have my Cricut loaded and ready to go. I am only going to be cutting the C's out of this. I went ahead and cut 4. I figured I might as well do a few at a time. I made sure that this is really pressed down so it doesn't catch on anything.
I've put in my fabric cutting blade.
And hopefully this is going to be it. I'm excited to see. And press. Got the wrong letter. Why? I picked the right letter. Well, that's not a C. But it did cut really well. I'm excited about it because of that. Let me show you. Lifting it up, you can see it definitely cut through all the fabric and the paper behind it. So I will use these. I'm just going to rearrange my fabrics. You know what? I changed my mind. I will use the Y for something, but to rearrange the letters just sort of messes it up. It puts a white color first, and to me it doesn't look as grounded as when you put a solid, warmer, dark color first. So yeah, I went ahead and hid the Y's on the cutting. When you go to cut, there's little 3 dots at the top left corner that you can click, and you can hide these letters. I added the C to go up and down here on the top and bottom, and then I'm going to cut those out. I have to tell you, this is really exciting. It's so... Oops, what's it cutting now? I cut out an L that was hidden. Well, I'll go ahead and finish it. It's not hitting anything else. Okay, so I have an L. Might as well. I had extra fabric at the bottom. Didn't do a great job of cutting it because it was sort of puckering right there, but at least I've got my C's. Now I'm going to go on to the rest of the letters. But this is very exciting and so pretty. So here is the biggest problem with working with black in a room that you've been quilting in a lot. All the little white fuzzies everywhere. I see them all over my iron, all over my sewing table, especially in my sewing machine, especially the cutting table. I'm going to have to go through and wipe everything down, or do this again when I'm done, I'm sure, just to make sure it's all nice looking when I go to sew it. And it's very, very soft. I love it. It's a really nice quality. I'm glad I was able to find these on Amazon. You just never know what you're going to get. If you're going to get a thin one, and then all the reviews say, oh, it's wonderful. I went through several. I did not buy a cheap one, because I don't want there to be major shrinkage. Try not to press the black, not touch it too much, because black can get that iron shiny sort of burn on it if you do. I'm just being very careful. I did iron it from the inside, but I see some creases here that I missed. So I think I'll wait on those. At least I got the area that I'm going to be putting the appliqué all nice and ironed out, and then I'll come back and clean it off and make sure it's all steamed later. Look how cute this is. There are my letters, and I will be appliquing them onto my sweatshirt. So that just means doing a satin stitch, and a satin stitch is a sort of wide zigzag stitch around all the edges to hold it down. I may have to keep this one for myself. I wanted to show you this. This is an old sweatshirt I've had for quite a while. I'm using it as reference, which is the best thing to do when you're trying to figure out placement for your letters. And it looks like it is 4 inches from the top edge of the crew neck, but then you never know. Well, I don't know. I'm going to use two measurements. I'm going to use the 3 edges from the bottom of the ribbing, or 4 edges from the top of the ribbing. And so that's how I'm going to try to place my lettering on my sweatshirt. And these are kind of close together. I think I'm going to spread mine out just a little bit more. Well, especially since there's 4 letters, I want it to go span a little more. It seems to be the style to have the big chunky letters sort of spread out. So when I was placing my letters, I got pretty close. This is the look of mine. I'm going to go with probably matching or close to matching thread on my lettering. Here is my ruler from the neckline. I'm try to center it. I'm going to redo these letters, of course, and make sure they're right. But I had it at just under 3 inches. I think I'll move it down just slightly, all my letters. You can see then the ribbing is much narrower than the one on my other sweatshirt. It's not a lot narrower, but it's somewhat. It's about a 1/4 inch smaller, so I wanted to have sort of an in-between spot, I think. It's hard to tell, but I'm going to repin these, hold it up and look in the mirror, see what I think. I'm going to move them down just slightly here, and we'll see how that looks. So after playing with the letters a little bit, because the C is so weighted, it looked like it was pushed over too far one direction, and the Y was off to the other side too far, even though they were equal distance from each side. The look of it was wrong, because down the center here, it looked like the O was leaning, because it was turned to the right more. It was leaning in on the Z. So you just have to sort of move things around till it looks right to your eye. And then, yeah, hold it up in the mirror and see if you like it. And I think we're at a good place now. Here are the 2 sweatshirts that I'm going to do with the word cozy. I first ironed this one down, then I folded it back so I could try to make this one look pretty much the same. And don't laugh at me. So, when I was ironing this one on, I did it on, according to the instructions, doing 3 seconds. Actually, this is like 6 seconds. So I held it down, moved to the next one, moved to the next one. I go to take off my pressing paper that I had on here, and the letters all moved. Oh, what the heck? Is it not hot enough? Why aren't they sticking? I did that 2 more times before I realized the paper backing was still on. Yes, you can laugh, that's fine. So I went through and I held like half of the letter down, peeled off half of it, tore it away, held the other letter half down, and took off the other half of paper. That way I could just try to keep them where I had them, because I had them placed where I thought I wanted them to be, and then I go and I make a mistake like that. So it did help to keep the paper on as you're cutting them out and removing them, removing the letters from the cutting mat, because otherwise they kind of can stretch out of shape when you're pulling them away. But make sure you take your paper off before you iron them on. So before I brought you along on this embroidery journey, let me take this off of here. I wanted to try out several techniques to make sure I got the zigzag just right. And look at that. Isn't that beautiful? This is the inner circle and the outer circle. And when I first started doing it, the bobbin thread was pulling the top thread. Because the stitch was so wide, it was pulling it in and making a bunching up around the stitching edge. So I remembered that over the years, I have had lots of embroidery projects, and I had these pre-cut tear-away embroidery backing. It's like an interfacing, but it's a stabilizer for embroidery, and I use it on my embroidery attachment for my machine. But it tears once you stitch through it. You can tear it away. So I've been using that on each letter. I just wanted to start with, I just happened to put the off-white thread onto my machine, so I did that first. I just put the backing behind the letter, pinned it down, because these are just smaller squares. It doesn't really, I could probably fit over 2. I'll probably put it on behind 2 here. But I pinned it from the front, and then I tore it away around the outer edge. Now I can go back, catch the inner edge of it, and tear that away as well. You can see it just comes away from the stitching. It doesn't feel, you don't feel it at all under the stitching, but it does hold it nice and flat instead of, puckering or something like that. So I'm going to pull that away when I'm done with each of these. Let me just tear from the top. I think it's easier. Go around and the stitching causes it to pull away. And then I'll take the center out as well. And you have a really cute, soft, but stabilized edge. So that is a really great trick for doing these applique. So I'm going to get this one behind these two letters and do the Y first, and I'll come back with the pink and do these two letters. I'm just going to pin all the way around it where it's not in the way of stitching and sort of out of the way so I don't get poked by them. You could probably use safety pins so you don't end up poking yourself as you're maneuvering your fabric under the foot. You've got to turn constantly. And then I have a couple little tricks on how to go around the curves that I'm going to tell you, because you don't want to just plow through it. Otherwise you're going to end up with some jaggedy edges, little spaces in between stitching when you go to turn, and you don't want to have that show up on you want a nice smooth perfect O, and you want it to look satiny, which is why it's called a satin stitch. Make sure you don't catch any other part of your sweatshirt underneath. You want it to go onto your machine. Make sure your sleeves are out of the way. Okay, I'm going to start on this inner Y part just because there's no reason. You can start wherever, but I think it's a good beginning and ending spot. Oh, and I forgot to show you. I'm using foot number 20. On my machine, it's called the satin stitch foot. It gives you the total view of what you're doing. It's a nice wide foot, and it makes it easy to zigzag as wide as you need to. I'm stitching mine at 0.45, and well, actually I shrank it down to 0.45 per inch and 4.4 wide zigzag. So it's going to be nice and tight, but wide. So halfway through sewing the first sweatshirt, I realized I have a knee lift on my machine. So I'm going to use that as I go around this sweatshirt. It's going to make it a lot easier. I know not everybody has one, so you just lift your foot from the back and continue sewing as you do all the turns around the letters.
When I was stitching, I would always stop with my needle on the outer edge of the letter when I was turning left. When I turned right, I stopped with the needle on the inner stitch with it on the inside of the letter. Your stitches will cross over themselves, but you want to do that so you don't have any gaps in the stitching. And you won't even see it when you go to look at it. It just blends right in, but that makes it look professional.
So here is a good example of why you wash your fabrics first before you do the applique, because they can shrink up on you and distort the letters. These actually didn't shrink much at all. I'm surprised. They're not that wrinkled. But this little calico cotton one is very, well, it's very wrinkly, but I think it's because it's got a tiny bit looser weave. So I'm going to iron these out and get them ready for the Cricut in order to cut out the letters that I need. So here I have SMILE for smile and FAITH for faith. And these are going on my black and pink sweatshirts. And I'll let you see all of those once I finish sewing on all the letters.
But first, here's a little sneak peek at one of our markets. You can see our makeup bags. Some of them come with hearts. You can see the bubble bucket that I made. They're in many different colors, and you can see all the Kindle laptop sleeves. book sleeves, small, medium, and large. And yeah, they're going so fast. It's really crazy, especially the Kindle sleeves. So that's been exciting this season. But you can see we've got lots of colors left and all different sizes. They're all available on our Etsy shop. And we're always adding new colors and new items because it's fun to create all this stuff and share it with you and then have it available on our Etsy shop or on, at a market. We haven't done a lot of them, but it's really fun to meet so many people that are just incredible crafters. So it's been a really fun time going there, and my husband goes with me and we just sort of share the experience. And here are our finished sweatshirts. Here is the Black Faith sweatshirt, the latte colored cozy sweatshirt, and the beautiful pink smile sweatshirt. And our two beautiful daughters, Katie and Emily, are modeling them for us. These sweatshirts are so soft and comfy. Well, I can't thank you guys enough for watching to the end again. I hope you consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I can't wait to show you some more next time in our next video. And I wish you all a wonderful day.